Many investors have been waiting eagerly for the SEC to finally approve a Bitcoin ETF. And those investors got a little bit of a fake out recently with a false report that had claimed the SEC had just approved a Bitcoin ETF. This report caused the price of Bitcoin to spike from about $28,000 all the way up to $30,000 before crashing right back down once the news was revealed to be fake. Now I'm going to show you why those three things plus a few other details we're going to take a look at here in this video show why it is very likely that the SEC will approve all Bitcoin ETFs simultaneously early 2024. Quick announcement for members of Heresy Financial University. I've just added a brand new benefit to the membership, which is monthly members only live streams. We're going to be going over strategies, tactics, questions from the courses, markets, economics, and much, much more. They'll be happening the first Wednesday of every month, and members can view the recordings if you're not able to join live. Log into the members area of Heresy Financial University to get all the info you need. First, it's important to understand what a Bitcoin ETF is and why so many people want one. The Bitcoin ETF that we're talking about here is a kind of ETF that holds actual Bitcoin. This is different than what exists right now, which is products that invest in Bitcoin futures. And we also have products that invest in a basket of cryptocurrencies. The other thing that is currently available, which is one of the most popular ways to get access to pure Bitcoin inside of something like a brokerage account, is a Bitcoin trust. But all of these things are different than a Bitcoin ETF. The funds that invest in Bitcoin futures are just investing in products that bet on the future price of Bitcoin so they can get close to the price action of Bitcoin, but there's no ownership of actual Bitcoin in those funds. Also, there are ETFs that invest in the basket of cryptocurrencies, but if you're just interested in Bitcoin, then having exposure to all of the other altcoins does you no good. And then finally, something like the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, GBTC, and it does not trade at its net asset value, which means that sometimes the price of those shares is much higher than the value of the Bitcoin it holds. Sometimes the price is much lower. All these issues would be solved if the SEC would approve a spot Bitcoin ETF. The second piece of context that is vital to know is the reason why many people want a Bitcoin ETF is because it opens the floodgates for a lot of money to have access to Bitcoin that currently does not. Because of the way that ETFs are regulated, there's much more money in accounts like retirement accounts that would have access to a Bitcoin ETF that doesn't have access to Bitcoin right now. This would open the doors for fund managers to allocate a 1 or a 2% allocation to Bitcoin in a standard portfolio, of which they cannot do that right now. For anybody who uses a regular financial advisor or any team that's putting together a portfolio for a retirement account or a pension fund, there's no cost-effective way right now for the majority of that money to have any exposure to Bitcoin. But a Bitcoin ETF would open the doors to allowing all of that money to have potential access to Bitcoin. As a result of this, many people view the approval of a Bitcoin ETF as being very bullish for the price of Bitcoin, as it would open the doors for a lot of money to come in that hasn't had access before. But first, a word from today's sponsor, iTrustCapital. Investors today face all sorts of new and unique risks. Invest in stocks and risk a stock market crash. Invest in bonds and watch the value of those bonds drop as interest rates rise. Keep your money in cash and watch inflation eat away your purchasing power. Invest in crypto and watch frauds like Sam Bankman-Fried steal all your money. This has many investors looking to alternative stores of value like gold and Bitcoin. The problem with this is that most investors are not able to access gold and Bitcoin. This is because most people have most of their assets tied up in their retirement accounts. And most retirement accounts do not allow you access to things like gold or silver or Bitcoin. This is where iTrustCapital comes in. iTrustCapital allows you to open up a new retirement account or even transfer an existing retirement account. Then you can purchase alternative stores of value with your retirement like gold, silver, and Bitcoin. In days like this where fraudulent platforms like FTX are collapsing and traditional banks like Silicon Valley Bank are failing from bank runs, iTrustCapital is still going strong because they do things the right way. You own your assets there. Your assets are always held off balance sheet and your accounts are never commingled with theirs. They partner with industry leaders like Kitco for their precious metals. They're straightforward about how they keep your assets separate and safe. And if you use my link in the description below, you will get $100 worth of Bitcoin just for signing up. But something you may notice about that is that it also provides a huge first mover advantage. Basically, whoever gets their spot Bitcoin ETF approved first is the one that would have all of the money rushing into it, from all the pensions, from all the 401ks, from all the IRAs, from all the brokerage accounts, from all the money managers. If there's only one, they get all that money. And because there's no differentiation, it's literally just packaged up Bitcoin. There's not going to be any difference between one from Schwab or one from Fidelity or one from BlackRock or one from Grayscale or anything like that. The only difference would be the fees in the fund, and most of them will probably be identical. And this isn't just wild speculation. All we have to do is take a look at what happened to the price of Bitcoin when this false report was first released. The news outlet Cointelegraph had erroneously reported that the SEC had approved an application for BlackRock to get its spot Bitcoin ETF. That false report was followed by a massive spike in the price of Bitcoin, followed by a dump when the story was later revealed to be untrue. Now, obviously, that price action had nothing to do with any money coming into Bitcoin as a result of the approval, because the approval wasn't real. So this was just speculation about the future price of Bitcoin going up as a result of all that money being able to come in. So you can imagine what might happen to the price of Bitcoin once all that other money actually has the opportunity to come in. And you can also imagine what kind of advantage would go to the first Bitcoin approved ETF. Commenting on this, the CEO of BlackRock is saying this exposes there's a lot of pent up interest in Bitcoin. And in another wild quote from somebody who historically has been extremely anti-Bitcoin, the BlackRock CEO said that some of this rally is way beyond the rumor. He said he thinks the rally today was about a flight to quality with all the issues around the Israeli war and now global terrorism. He said there's a lot more people running into a flight to quality, whether that's treasuries, gold, or crypto. I don't think that these words, coming from the person who runs the largest money manager on earth, are flippant. I think this is somebody talking his book. I think this is somebody who knows what's coming, especially considering that Bitcoin ETF filings are nothing new. There are currently over 10 filings for spot Bitcoin ETFs. BlackRock and Invesco, Fidelity is in the mix, Cathie Wood's ARK is in the mix, Grayscale is in there, and plenty of others. But a lot of these filings have been happening for years now, and the SEC has always shot it down. BlackRock, on the other hand, only applied for this ETF in June. BlackRock, who has only ever had one ETF filing out of all of its hundreds of applications, has been denied, and suddenly they want to just randomly throw in an application? I don't think so. It's also worth noting that the SEC recently opted to not appeal Grayscale's court win. The background on this is that Grayscale is a Bitcoin trust, which we covered in the beginning. We also know that Bitcoin futures ETFs are already allowed. So Grayscale applied to convert its trust into a spot Bitcoin ETF, which the SEC denied. Grayscale then sued the SEC for this and won. Their reasoning was that it was arbitrary, that if the SEC is going to allow a Bitcoin futures ETF, which provides no more protection to investors beyond what a spot Bitcoin ETF would, then it is arbitrary to allow a Bitcoin futures ETF and not a spot Bitcoin ETF. Grayscale won this in court, and the SEC did not appeal. This is leading many investors to believe that Grayscale will win its Bitcoin ETF approval request, which is causing its discount to fall. So let's put all the pieces together here. Number one, there's a ton of money that right now doesn't have access to Bitcoin. If a spot Bitcoin ETF gets approved, all that money now has access to allocate, 1%, 2%, any amount into Bitcoin. That will cause at least some buying. It's also true that any ETF that gets approval first would have that first mover advantage and would soak up all of that Bitcoin demand. And while the SEC is corrupt and it does pick winners and it does play favorites, doing so in this case would be extremely apparent. And given the big Wall Street players that all want access to this table, it is not likely the SEC wants to take that kind of heat right now. Given the fact that BlackRock recently applied, given the long history of SEC shutting all the applications down and Grayscale winning its suit against the SEC for arbitrarily shutting them down. And finally, the CEO of BlackRock talking about the pent-up demand for Bitcoin and calling Bitcoin a flight to quality makes it seem like the SEC is on its way to approving a Bitcoin ETF. It just can't do it for one before it does it for everybody everybody else. It's allowing all of its big Wall Street players to come to the table, get their filings in, get everything in order, so it can approve them all at the same time. Because a ton of money is about to be unleashed on Bitcoin, and it doesn't want to play favorites, and it doesn't want to pick winners here. They're going around behind the scenes, behind closed doors, saying, hey, we're gonna approve you. It's gonna take some time, so be patient, but get ready because we're gonna allow you in at the same time as everybody else. As a final note, I would never recommend buying Bitcoin through an ETF as a way to hold Bitcoin because you don't actually own any of it, and that defeats most of the purpose for Bitcoin in the first place. Sure, if you just want access to the potential price appreciation, it'll do that job. But the potential price appreciation is just one small part, one small benefit of a permissionless payment system that Bitcoin is. But it's true that most people do not and will not care about these things, and money will rush into these Bitcoin ETFs nonetheless, which in my opinion is very bullish. And if you'd like help incorporating Bitcoin into an expertly crafted portfolio that will allow you to weather the storms and profit regardless of market conditions, join Heresy Financial University. It's only 99 bucks a month, and it will teach you things that will make you much, much more than that. Link is in the description below. As always, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.